Alright, and Kumasao Reviews is back with round 3 of the MakeToys Giant versus TFC Toys Hercules. Make a thread, make a review, whatever you want to call it. It's been a 3-part series, and honestly, it's been fun. But this just happens to be the last of the main 3 videos. And right now we're looking at the Gestalt mode, or combined mode, for both of these guys. We're going to go full out. We're going to go through playability, aesthetic, pretty much everything you'd think of when making that purchase and decision. Either between the two or just buying one of these on its own. Obviously I bought both, and I'm sure there will be plenty of people who do the same. However, I just want to give you as informed of a decision as possible. So, I don't know where to start off. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick a tiger by the toe. If it hollers, let it go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Looks like the little guy's going first. And when I say little guy, the first thing I want to do, in case I forget, is go ahead and make that measurement. Because a lot of people wonder this. I'm getting about 11 inches from toe to head on Giant. And just under 13 inches for TFC Toys Hercules. So when it comes to the toy-to-toy comparison and people saying Giant's so tiny and things like that, you're literally talking about 2 inches and $300 difference in price. So I think a lot of that talk just needs to be settled with that because it doesn't even make sense. But anyways, getting started, I'm going to go ahead and move the big guy out of the way. And get this started. Give me 1 second, just got to make sure the other box is safe over here. And here we go. Let me zoom in. And alright, you guys ready? I'm definitely ready. Very good. So I'm actually going to give him a little bit less light. And boom. Now, we have a pretty balanced aesthetic here. I mean, his shoulder width as compared to his waist is, pretty well built. He's got that, I guess, V Cobra, just muscular aesthetic to him. They did very well with that. I'm going to put his arm straight down so I can make my next point. The only problem that I have is his shoulders are pretty long. I mean, they take up a pretty good section of his torso in comparison. I mean, his shoulders are almost as long as his entire torso, whereas his forearms and hands don't even make it down to his knees. So in comparison to his legs that are really in proportion, the elbow through forearm area does look kind of stumpy in comparison. But going through it, this is definitely a fun and solid toy. We'll go ahead and take a look at the head first. We'll just move top to bottom. It does move side to side. Unfortunately, by design, it doesn't look up. It's not set to look down, but his forehead area is so big, this black part, that it gives off the impression that he is looking down when he's really not. Just because you see so much of his forehead even looking straight on. It's just one of those things that they chose for an aesthetic that gives off a perception that's not necessarily there. Now looking at the shoulders, on each side, they do have the ability to move in and out, which gives them much more range of motion when it comes to that play, rotation, etc., etc. He actually has the ability, there are buttons on his back, on each side. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right there. That's how they tab in and out. His joints actually lock into place. And then you have to hold the button down to press it back in. Oops. Or if you don't do it right, that's what's going to happen. So let me go ahead and get that back. And there we go. Make sure it's all the way in. And yeah, he has very strong ratcheting joints. Very strong. Alright, and while I'm popping stuff out here, just going to tap that in real quick. Simple. And ratchet them in and out. Okay. His elbows ratchet as well. He does have that bicep swivel, as well as the wrist articulation, and separate movement for each finger. However, his fingers are cuffed, or cupped, so it's not like they have the movement at each, knuckle point and things like that. It does have separate thumb articulation though, so that's pretty neat. Now looking at his legs, he does have thigh swivel, and it's cool because the wheel is adjustable to make that thigh, whether it's swivel, whether it's moving in and out. Yeah, it's cool that the wheels can move around and adjust. Now at the knee, he does have full range of knee motion. Okay, and his ankles, both ankles are ball jointed. Which is really cool in terms of that articulation and things like that in the heel. Now, looking at his balance, we'll go ahead, just raise one foot up, make sure that the support is down, the arms, and yeah, he's a very balanced and stable toy. Move this back down. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and rotate him now so that you guys can get a full look. Get this rotated back. Get his legs back stable. Alright, here's side view. Back view. Other side. And back to the front. It's cool, get the wheels adjusted and stuff like that. I just like the aesthetic a bit better with those up. But yeah, give you guys one more look at him, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the big guy. Hold 2 more inches. So there you go. Very cool effort from MakeToys. That's Giant for you. Okay, now the big man. Dun, dun, dun. There we have it. Go ahead and zoom out a bit so that we can capture it all. Make sure it's focused. I want to be fair in that aspect too. Yeah, moving more towards the center, and boom. Just taking a moment. The thing you'll notice, he has a very imposing aesthetic. He still does have that, not as pronounced as on the MakeToys Giant, but he still has that broad shoulder, thin waist, but he's a lot more proportionate when it comes to the shoulders compared to the forearms, compared to the legs and things like that. He's definitely a very, I guess, built Gestalt or combined robot, but he's also very realistic proportion too. He's got a little bit of exaggeration in the forearms here and things like that, making them wider, because it does inspire from the IDW comic book version of him. But, like I said, he's very proportioned. It's nice. Aesthetically and things like that, it is very cool. Alright, now going through his range of motion, he can definitely look up, side to side, full head articulation, look down. Okay? His shoulders, they're a lot like they actually are the Energon robot ports. I don't know if a lot of people remember those, but pretty nice ratchets and things like that. He unfortunately does not have the locking system, so it's one of those situations where you do have to be more careful with him, because if you pull down and the like, or pull out too much, these will just come out. On the other side, he has elbow swivel, elbow joints, wrist articulation, and his fingers actually have 2 points at the knuckle and at the middle of the finger of articulation. And you'll notice he has very big hands. Okay. He does have some waist articulation there. He does have the ratchet and thigh joints. He has the swivel at the thighs. Full knee bend. And they're not ball jointed, but he does at least have side to side ankle support. So that's pretty cool. Pretty articulated robot in and of itself. The only problem that I have with Hercules is that even after they released a fix for it, and I'm going to say that with quotations, his thighs are very prone to doing the splits, I'd say. The bottoms of his feet, the plastic is finished, so it's prone to, if you don't stand him just right or make sure he's stable, they'll slide apart from each other. And it stinks because it starts to weaken the ratchets when he does the splits and things like that. His arms and legs are also very heavy, so it wears on the shoulder and knee joints really quick. I don't know if you guys noticed, but with Exgraver over here, it's really easy to, you know, just fall down and things like that on its own. Whereas Neckbreaker, I'm actually starting to remember their names now, it clicks in place and is a lot stronger. Just because that one hasn't worn out as fast. This side's a little bit heavier on him. But it's unfortunate because being able to pose them and things like that, especially with bots this big, you want to be able to put them in those articulated poses and things like that, you know? And same with the legs. I've gotten a bit better at posing it, but he doesn't have a lot of range of motion and things like that. Oops, put that back. It's fine when Mad Blender's out front when it comes to one leg, but when you put the shovel bots out in front, it's not quite as easy to pose them and things like that. By shovel bot, I mean Structor. But yeah, he's definitely just as posable as Giant. However, he's made so heavily that putting him in extravagant poses and things like that, he just doesn't have the support there to maintain those and be able to do them for, you know, extended periods of time. So the play factor with him is definitely cut short by that. Another cool thing about him is he doesn't come with the visored look, but he comes with visor separately, so that you can put them on him. And I'm sorry, I know it's like the littlest thing in the world, and a lot of people I've talked to don't even like the glasses or whatever, but I think they're so pimp. I'm not gonna lie. I think they're just the coolest thing in the world. So yeah, there you have it. And there's Hercules. Alright, and before I go into rotating them, one thing that I did want to touch on is the crane. The crane piece for Dr. Crank, and how that goes. It's meant to go on the shoulder here and just lean back, which makes for a really, in terms of balance and things like that, just not fun. I mean, it looks ridiculous. But there was a poster on TFW, and I wish I remembered his name at the moment, but he actually found a method using one of the pieces from one of the guns that comes with Hercules to make it hang over the back. This actually plugs into the back, or into the gun here, and the gun pegs on. And boom. Now you've got the crane attached, but it's not so obtrusive. The only thing that I wish was that that gun was cast in a black instead of, you know, the red, because it sticks out a bit more. So we look at that from a little bit more above. Get his arm back in place there. And there you go. Now we'll go ahead and do the rotation, side view, and see his legs are wanting to slide now and go back into that, or do the splits. We'll go with the back now. Another side. And the front. Let's heels up here, see if that helps balance a little bit more. But yeah. And there you go. There is Hercules. I have to get some of the light out of his way. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and bring Giant back into the fold. Alright, get him on one side there. The Giant on the other side there. And for our last piece of the puzzle here, I'm going to put in Hinkai, or Hinky, I don't know, I'm not Japanese, I don't feel bad about not knowing how to pronounce that, but Classics, the Japanese Classics, Optimus Prime. Now, as you can see, even though there's 2 inches between them, in Toyverse, that's a pretty big difference. It's sizable because it's not like these things are huge robots. But, focusing in on Optimus a bit more, you can see that when it comes to that classic scaling and things like that, Hercules is quite a bit better. Reason being is, he comes with pretty standard deluxe size robots in the first place, so that when they combine, I mean, they just make this big, monstrous robot to scale. And I'll go ahead and put Classics Bumblebee in here too, just so that you guys can see a bit better. And the reason I'm doing this is because most people don't just collect one toy. A lot of people who collect, especially third-party toys, you know, are more serious collectors. They're buying these things for display with their Classics robots, because these definitely aren't masterpieces, either of them. So that scaling and things like that's a big deal. So with that, I'll go ahead and go into my final thoughts. Let me get Giant posed a little bit better there. Snap his foot in place. And alright, when it comes to the aesthetic and the size, I'm actually going to go with, and I'm going to pose these more in the middle. Sorry for being a bit OCD, but I want to be fair to you guys. Okay, sorry to cut myself off there, but I'm actually going to go with TFC Toys Hercules. When it comes to functionality and playability, definitely going to go with MakeToys Giant, because it's head over heels the more functional, well balanced, stronger joints, you know, toy. But overall, I have gotta give it to TFC Toys Hercules. Reason being is that, for me personally as a collector, I don't really buy these to play with. When it comes to what I do with these, I might transform them once, twice, but the majority of my posing, playing with, things like that, is pretty much between reviews and pictures, and then I put them on my shelf for display, and I don't really mess with them much more. So I want something that just looks imposing, looks intimidating, and things like that. And when it looks like Optimus Prime can jump up and slap Devastator in the face, it really doesn't give me, personally, that imposing feeling. Another reason is that the face on MakeToys Giant is a lot more, I would say, anime and cutesy even. It's a very, even though it's not a smiling face, just the aesthetic of it is what I would in fact call very cutesy. Whereas Hercules has that more stoic, mean, just don't mess with me, not just look, but vibe to him. A lot of it has to do with size, but a lot of it's aesthetic and things like that too. Like, he has those big, imposing hands and things like that, to where you can just see him reaching down and grabbing, you know, a classic bot by the head or something like that. Now, price plays a factor too. You're looking at $600 for Hercules and about $350 for MakeToys Giant. Neither of these are bad, so when it comes to value for the money, Giant's always going to win, because it's cheaper and it's just as playable, and in fact more playable than Hercules. You're not going to lose with either of these robots. The thing is though, like I said, for my personal preference, just as a collector and as a fan, Hercules just fits my needs for my display a bit more than MakeToys. And it's weird because it's one of those situations where you're not comparing good to bad, it's more like great to good. So just because I say I like Hercules better doesn't mean that I don't like Giant. Or if I would have said I like Giant better, it wouldn't mean that I don't like Hercules. In fact, I like both of these a lot. I won't be selling either. But at the same time, like I said, my vote does go to TFC Toys Hercules. I know there are going to be a lot of people who disagree with that one. I definitely respect all of you guys' opinions. And I'm sure this comes as a surprise to most because, as a lot of collectors know who talk to me, I'm a guy who buys everything that Fans Project and MakeToys makes. I'm a whore to these companies. But at the same time, as a reviewer and somebody who's relaying honest opinion, or, you know, fair opinion, I've got to be honest with you guys. So, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Close out with one last look of both bots and a couple of classics toys. And yeah, overall it's been very fun filming this for you guys, and I've enjoyed the feedback, and I look forward to, you know, reviewing some of the other things like the Easter eggs, the weapons, and, you know, even the upgrade kits and stuff like that on these guys too. So it definitely isn't over. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great one.